Kunnal had always hated his sack. The thick, rough fabric hung off his back every day like a heavy weight he couldn't get rid of. It was big, ugly, and everyone in school knew it. But that wasn't the worst part. The worst part was the fact that the sack hid the one thing Kunnal wished the world would never see. His face. Kunnal's father, Chief Adewale, the billionaire businessman who owned half the city, had insisted that his son go to school dressed like everyone else, normal, humble. He wanted Kunnal to experience what it was like to be just another student, to live without the advantage of wealth and power. That meant no designer clothes, no expensive shoes, and certainly no fancy bags. Kunnal had no choice but to comply. But it wasn't just the sack that made him different. It was the face hidden under it. Kunnal was handsome, not just good-looking, but the kind of handsome that made people stop in their tracks. He had sharp cheekbones, a well-shaped jawline, and deep brown eyes that seemed to look straight into a person's soul. His face, when uncovered, would make heads turn. But Kunnal knew that wasn't something he wanted. So, every morning, he would pull the bag over his head, hiding his face and walking to school like everyone else. If he could keep his looks a secret, maybe, just maybe, the teasing would stop. But it didn't. Kunnal was the smartest student in Lagos Imperial High, but he had learned quickly that being smart didn't mean people would like you. Being smart just meant you were different. And different wasn't always good. In Kunnal's case, it made him a target. Every morning, as he walked through the school gates, the whispers started. Some students would point and snicker, while others would laugh out loud. There goes Sack Boy, looking like he's about to carry some yam tubers to the village. One student would joke. Why's he always wearing that sack? Is he trying to hide from the sun? Another would say. Kunnal ignored them. He had learned to, but that didn't mean it didn't hurt. Every insult, every mocking word, felt like a small cut in his chest. But he would never show it. Never. He couldn't. If he did, they'd know that they had gotten to him. Kunnal was used to it by now, but that didn't make it any easier. He walked past the school's main building, where the biggest crowd of students stood. They were all laughing and chatting with their friends, wearing the latest brands, the newest shoes. Tony, the most popular student in the school, was right in the middle of the crowd. Tony had everything, looks, brains, and a father who could buy anything he wanted. Kunnal had heard Tony's laugh from a mile away. The sound was loud and confident, almost as if he thought the whole world should be paying attention to him. And they did. Everyone did. Tony was the king of Lagos Imperial High. He ruled with an easy smile and a sharp tongue. And he hated Kunnal. Kunnal didn't know why Tony hated him. He had never done anything to deserve it. But that didn't matter. Tony had made it his mission to make Kunnal's life miserable. Every day, Tony found new ways to remind Kunnal that he was beneath him. Hey, Sack Boy, Tony would shout whenever Kunnal walked past him, his voice dripping with mockery. Didn't know you were still alive under that bag. I thought you'd disappear into it by now. Kunnal kept his head down, pretending he hadn't heard, but he always felt Tony's eyes on him, burning into the back of his neck. It was the same thing every day. Watch out, Tony. Amaka, Tony's girlfriend, would chime in, laughing with her friends. Sack Boy's gonna hide in that bag and disappear before we can even see his face. The girls around her would laugh, and Kunnal would hear the laughter echoing in his ears as he walked away. They made it sound like it was a joke, but Kunnal knew it wasn't. They hated him. All of them did. It wasn't just Tony and Amaka. It was everyone. The school was divided into groups, and Kunnal was an outsider in every one of them. The nerds? They didn't want to be seen with him, thinking he was too smart, too different. The popular kids? They looked down on him, like he was nothing more than a punching bag. Even the quiet kids avoided him, scared they might end up like him if they got too close. Kunnal didn't mind, though. He didn't need their company. He had his books, and that was enough for him. Books were his escape. When things got too loud, when the teasing got too bad, he could always count on his studies. He could bury himself in the pages of a good textbook and forget about the world for a while. Kunnal had always been smart. From the moment he could read, he devoured every book he could find. His father, Chief Adewale, was proud of his son's intelligence but didn't want Cunnel to be too confident. "Don't let anyone know who you are," his father had told him since he was a child. "The world doesn't need to see your face. The world doesn't need to know what you're capable of." Cunnel didn't fully understand why his father was so secretive, but he obeyed, wearing his sack, hiding his face. It wasn't easy, but it was the way he had to live. Today, like every other day, Cunnel made his way to his first class, holding his books tightly. He wasn't in the mood for more teasing, not today. He had an important exam coming up, and his mind was focused. That was the only thing that kept him sane, the knowledge that his intelligence could take him far. No one could take that from him. But the moment he stepped into his first class, he knew things were going to be different today. "Look, it's Sack Boy!" Deji, one of Tony's closest friends, shouted across the room, drawing everyone's attention. "I bet he's hiding some serious magic tricks under that sack. Maybe he's gonna pull a rabbit out of it." The class erupted into laughter. Cunnel ignored them and sat at his desk, keeping his eyes on his books. But he could feel the eyes on him, the whispers behind his back. They never stopped. As the teacher, Mrs. Okafor, walked into the classroom, the room fell silent. But that didn't stop the teasing. Deji whispered to his friend, "Is he gonna take the sack off for once? Or are we gonna have to wait for his big reveal?" Cunnel kept his head down, his fingers running over the cover of his book. He couldn't let them see how much it hurt. He couldn't show them that they were getting to him. But the truth was, it was getting harder every day. The teasing, the whispers, the way everyone treated him like he was invisible. It was starting to break him. Cunnel didn't know how much longer he could keep going like this. The bell rang and the class began. Cunnel focused on his work, trying to block out the noise. He knew that the one thing he could control was his grades. If he could just keep doing well in school, if he could just keep being the smartest kid in the class, then maybe they would leave him alone. But deep down, he knew that wasn't true. It wasn't his grades they cared about. It was who he was. And Cunnel wasn't ready to show anyone who he really was. Not yet. As the day went on, Cunnel could feel the familiar weight of his sack on his back, the teasing still echoing in his ears. But one thought stayed in his mind: he had to get through today. He had to get through this week. He had to survive because there was something bigger coming. Something he couldn't yet explain, but he could feel it building. This wasn't just another school day. Today, something was going to change. And Cunnel wasn't sure if he was ready for it. Cunnel sat in his seat, trying hard to focus on the math problems in front of him. The numbers on the page blurred as he tried to block out the loud chatter coming from the back of the class. He could already feel Tony's eyes on him, and he knew that trouble was coming. "Hey, Sack Boy, you gonna solve all the problems for us?" Tony's voice rang out, loud and sharp, cutting through the murmur of the class. Cunnel didn't look up. He had learned by now that ignoring Tony was the best way to handle it. Tony didn't like being ignored, though, and that just made him angrier. "Hey, Sack Boy." Tony's voice rose, and a few of his friends snickered. "You think you're too smart for us? You're too good to even talk to us?" Cunnel still didn't look up. He wasn't about to let Tony get to him. But the longer he sat there, the more he could feel the tension building in the air. It wasn't just the mocking. It was the way Tony made everyone around him join in. Cunnel could feel the eyes of the whole class on him. Some of them were laughing. Some were just watching, waiting for Cunnel to react. But he couldn't. Not today. Not ever. Tony, Deji, one of Tony's friends, spoke up. "Maybe we should have a little fun with Sack Boy today. Let's see if we can get him to finally take off that sack and show us what's underneath." The whole class erupted in laughter, and Cunnel felt his heart tighten. He could feel the heat on his face, but he couldn't let them see it. He couldn't show them that it hurt. So he sat still, focusing on his workbook, pretending he didn't hear a thing. "Hey, Sack Boy," Tony shouted again, this time right in Cunnel's ear. "Why you so scared to show us your face? You hide behind that ugly bag every day like it's gonna protect you." Cunnel didn't answer. He didn't have to. Everyone knew what they were trying to do. They wanted him to snap. They wanted him to lose control. But Cunnel wouldn't give them that satisfaction. As the bell rang, signaling the end of the lesson, Cunnel grabbed his things quickly, standing up to leave. He needed to get out of there before they followed him. But as he walked towards the door, he felt a hand grab his shoulder. He turned around to see Tony standing behind him, his face filled with a mocking smile. "Where you running off to, sack boy?" Tony asked, his voice dripping with sarcasm. "You gonna hide in your little corner now?" Cunnel stood there, trying to keep his voice steady. "Leave me alone, Tony." Tony's smirk grew wider, and he shoved Cunnel back into his seat. "Make me," he said. Cunnel was ready to stand up, to walk away, but something inside him held him back. Something told him that if he didn't take a stand now, things would only get worse. "Just stop, Tony," Cunnel said quietly. "Why do you always pick on me?" Tony's expression shifted, just for a second, from smug to confused. "Pick on you?" he repeated. "You think I'm picking on you?" "Nah, man. I'm just having some fun. Can't you take a joke?" Cunnel shook his head. "It's not funny, Tony." Tony's face hardened, and his friends behind him started to laugh louder. "Oh, look at that. Sack boy's gonna cry now," Deji yelled. Cunnel's fists clenched at his sides, but he kept his breath steady. He wasn't going to let them see him upset. He wasn't going to give them that victory. Tony leaned in closer, his voice low but cutting. "You're nothing but a joke, Cunnel. You're nothing but a nerd with a sack on your back. You'll never be anything more." Cunnel's heart raced, but he said nothing. He knew that arguing would only make things worse. He grabbed his bag, lifted it over his shoulder, and turned toward the door again, ignoring Tony's taunts. "Where you going, sack boy?" Tony shouted one last time. "You gonna hide again like always?" Cunnel didn't answer. He didn't have to. He just kept walking, his steps quick, his mind focused on getting out of that room. He couldn't stand being around Tony and his friends anymore. He needed space. He needed to breathe. As he stepped out into the hallway, Cunnel felt the cool air hit his face. The noise from the classroom faded into the background as he made his way to the school's courtyard. He leaned against the brick wall, taking a deep breath. He wasn't crying. He didn't even feel like crying. But there was a pressure in his chest, a tightness that wouldn't go away. It wasn't just the teasing, it was everything. It was the fact that no matter how smart he was, no matter how hard he tried to stay invisible, he would always be that kid in the sack. He would always be the outsider. Cunnel hated it. He hated the way Tony made him feel like he was less than everyone else. He hated the way his classmates laughed at him behind his back. But most of all, he hated that he couldn't do anything about it. A voice snapped Cunnel out of his thoughts. "Hey!" Cunnel turned to see a girl standing by the gate, watching him. It was Amaka, Tony's girlfriend. "Amaka," Cunnel muttered, his voice barely above a whisper. "What's the matter, Cunnel?" Amaka asked, her tone mocking but curious. "Tony hurt your feelings again?" Cunnel didn't say anything. He didn't want to engage with her. He knew what she was doing, trying to get under his skin. But he wasn't going to give her that power. "I think you should just take off that sack, Cunnel," Amaka continued, stepping closer. "Maybe then you'd actually have some friends. You'd be just like Tony. You could fit in with the rest of us." Cunnel felt his chest tighten. "I'm fine the way I am," he said, his voice steady. "I don't need anyone's approval." Amaka laughed. "Yeah, right," she said, shaking her head. "You'll never be good enough for us, Cunnel. You're just some poor kid trying to act like you're better than everyone else." Cunnel looked at her, his eyes hardening. "I'm not trying to be better than anyone. I'm just trying to survive." Amaka took a step back, her smile fading slightly. She looked at him, her eyes narrowing, and for a moment, Cunnel thought he saw something else. Something like respect flicker across her face. But it was gone as quickly as it appeared. "Whatever," Amaka muttered, turning away. "You're just a waste of time." Cunnel watched her walk off, a strange feeling settling in his stomach. He knew that Amaka didn't like him, but for the first time he wondered if she actually saw him. Maybe she didn't care about him the way Tony did, but there was something different in the way she spoke to him. Something that didn't seem so cruel. Cunnel pushed the thought aside and made his way to his next class, his mind already on the homework he had to finish. He couldn't waste time thinking about Amaka or Tony. He had bigger things to worry about, like the upcoming student council elections. The bell rang loud, signaling the start of the school's assembly. Connell sat quietly at his desk, fingers tapping nervously on his textbook. He could feel the anticipation in the air. Today, the school would announce the candidates for the upcoming student council election. Connell had heard about it for weeks now, but it still felt strange to think that he might actually be a part of it. "Gather round, everyone," Mrs. Okafor called out as she walked into the auditorium. The students shuffled into the seats, buzzing with excitement. Connell sat near the back, as usual, trying to blend into the crowd. He had no intention of getting involved in the election. The last thing he wanted was to be seen. But in a way, he felt like it would be easier to let the storm pass and stay unnoticed. Mrs. Okafor stood in front of the group, her hands folded in front of her. She was tall and strict, but even she seemed to be in a good mood today. "I have some important news for all of you. The student council elections are coming up, and we're going to have some new candidates this year." She smiled, looking around at the students. "This is your chance to be a leader, to help make your school a better place." Connell shifted in his seat. His heart was racing, and he tried to focus on Mrs. Okafor's words, but his mind kept drifting. It was hard to focus with all the noise from the other students. "All right," Mrs. Okafor continued, "let's get started. First, I'd like to introduce our first candidate for president." She paused for dramatic effect. "Tony Alyamide." The crowd erupted into cheers and claps. Tony was the golden boy of the school, tall, confident, and always at the center of attention. He smiled as he stood up, waving to the crowd like he was already the president. The applause didn't surprise Connell. It was expected. Everyone loved Tony. Thanks, everybody," Tony said, grinning. His voice was smooth, full of charm. "I'm here today because I believe in this school, and I believe in all of you. Together, we can make this place even better. So vote for me, and we'll take this school to the next level." Connell could feel the energy in the room, the way everyone hung on Tony's every word. The cheers only grew louder as Tony stood proudly at the front of the room. Connell couldn't help but feel a little sick inside. Tony had everything: good looks, popularity, and now he was running for president. The whole school adored him, and Connell knew that there was no way he could compete with that. "Next," Mrs. Okafor said, "we have a surprise candidate. This person was nominated by some of his classmates. He's not running because he wants attention. He's running because he wants to make a difference. Please welcome Connell Adiwale." Connell froze. The room went silent. For a moment, Connell thought he might have heard wrong. But no, Mrs. Okafor was smiling at him, and the rest of the room was staring. Connell's heart sank. He had never wanted this. He had never asked for it. But here he was, the new kid everyone would soon be talking about. The sack boy was now officially in the running. Tony turned and looked at Connell with a smirk on his face. "Sack boy running for president," he muttered loud enough for Connell to hear. The students around him giggled. Connell felt his face flush with heat. He could hear the whispers now, could feel them closing in on him. This was a nightmare. Connell slowly stood up, his hands trembling. Thank you," he mumbled, trying to keep his voice steady. I'm running because I think we can all do better. This school can be more than just a place to study. We can make it a community." His words were awkward, but there was a sincerity in them that wasn't lost on a few students. Connell kept his head down, trying not to look at the others, but he could still hear the snickers, the laughter, the disbelief. "All right, Connell. Good luck," Mrs. Okafor said, clearly surprised by his speech. She gave him a small nod, and Connell quickly sat down. His heart was pounding, and his face burned. He wished he could just disappear. "All right, everyone. Now that we've heard from the candidates, let's get ready for the election campaign. Each candidate will have a chance to speak to the school tomorrow. Get your speeches ready, and remember, this is your chance to make an impact." The bell rang again, signaling the end of the assembly. Connell sat still, staring at his desk. His mind was spinning. What had he just done? Why had he agreed to this? He didn't want to be in the spotlight. He hated it. All he wanted was to hide behind his sack to stay invisible. But now he was officially part of the election, and there was no turning back. As the students filed out of the auditorium, Tony walked past Cunnel, his smirk still in place. "So, you're really going through with this?" Tony said, his voice dripping with mockery. "You think you're some kind of hero now, huh? What are you gonna do? Solve all our problems with that brain of yours?" Cunnel didn't answer. He couldn't. All he wanted was to get away from Tony, from the laughter, from the attention. But Tony wasn't done. "You really think people are gonna vote for you? You can't even take that stupid sack off. You're a joke, Cunnel. A joke." Cunnel clenched his fists, but he didn't speak. He couldn't. The more he spoke, the more Tony and his friends would have to laugh at him. So he stayed silent, keeping his eyes on the ground. Tony stepped closer, his voice lowering to a whisper. "You're gonna lose, you know that, right? No one cares about what you have to say. You're just the nerd with the bag." Cunnel stayed quiet, his heart beating fast. He had to remind himself that Tony's words didn't matter. But in that moment, they felt like they did. His hands shook as he held his books tightly against his chest. "Good luck, sack boy," Tony said, before turning and walking off, his friends following behind. Cunnel stood there, alone, his mind racing. He couldn't believe what was happening. He had never imagined he'd be running for student council president. Felt ridiculous. He wasn't a leader. He wasn't even a part of the crowd. He was just Cunnel, the boy with the sack who everyone made fun of. But something about the idea of standing up for the school, standing up for himself, started to spark a small fire inside him. Maybe he wasn't the most popular. Maybe he wasn't the most confident. But he was smart. And he had ideas. Maybe, just maybe, this election was his chance to make a real difference. But first, he needed to survive the next few days. And that was going to be a lot harder than he thought. Cunnel had never been so nervous in his life. His hands were shaking as he stood outside the classroom, waiting for his turn to give his campaign speech. He could hear the other students talking, laughing, and the low murmur of voices. It sounded like the whole school was in there, watching. He didn't know what to expect. His heart was racing. How could he compete with Tony? Tony was everything the school wanted in a leader. Handsome, popular, confident. And then there was Cunnel, the boy in the sack who everyone made fun of. What chance did he have? He looked down at his feet, trying to calm himself. His father had always told him to do his best, no matter what. "People will respect you for your mind, Cunnel, not your appearance," he had said. "Never let anyone make you feel less because of what you wear or how you look." Cunnel pulled in a deep breath and walked into the room. "Next up, Cunnel Adewale," Mrs. Okafor said with a smile, motioning for Cunnel to step up to the front of the classroom. Cunnel felt his stomach flip. The students' eyes were on him, and he could feel Tony's mocking gaze from the back of the room. Tony had been making jokes all day about Cunnel's campaign, laughing with his friends, making sure Cunnel knew that no one took him seriously. Cunnel walked to the front, his legs feeling like they were made of jelly. He set his papers on the desk and looked at the crowd, trying to steady his nerves. "Hello, everyone," he said, his voice quieter than he wanted it to be. "I know most of you don't know me very well, and I guess that's okay." He paused for a moment. The classroom was silent, and Cunnel could hear his heartbeat pounding in his ears. "I'm running for student council because I believe things can be better," he said, trying to sound confident. "We have a great school, but we can make it even better. We can make it a place where everyone feels included, no matter who they are." Cunnel felt a little more relaxed as he spoke, his words starting to flow more easily. "I might not be the most popular guy in the room. I know I'm not the one everyone's talking about, but I promise you I've got ideas. I think I can make this school better for all of us." Cunnel looked over at Tony, who was sitting in the back with a smirk on his face. He could feel the weight of Tony's gaze, but he forced himself to keep going. "I know what it's like to feel left out, to feel like you don't belong," Cunnel said, his voice growing a little stronger. "But that doesn't mean we have to stay on the outside. We can all be a part of something. We can change how we treat each other and how we work together as a school." Connell paused again, his eyes scanning the room. He could see some of the students nodding, their expressions softening. He took another deep breath, feeling a little braver now. So, if you vote for me, I'll work hard to make sure everyone gets a chance. No one will feel like they don't matter. I want us to be a team. I want us to support each other. And I'll do my best to make sure that happens. Connell smiled weakly, hoping he had said enough. He knew his speech wasn't perfect. He wasn't like Tony, who could talk for hours and have everyone laughing. But he said what he needed to say. He believed in it. When Connell finished, there was a quiet pause. No one said anything right away, and it made him feel like maybe he had said something wrong. But then, slowly, a few students clapped. It wasn't much, but it was something. Connell looked over at the other candidates, feeling a little better. Tony was leaning back in his chair, arms folded, his usual smirk still on his face. Connell didn't expect anything else from him. Tony had never been the type to encourage anyone but himself. As the next candidate got up to speak, Connell quietly returned to his seat. His heart was still pounding, but at least it was over. Later that day, during lunch, Connell found a quiet corner in the cafeteria to sit by himself. He didn't want to deal with the noise or the whispers from the other students. He needed some time to think. He was halfway through his meal when he felt someone tap him on the shoulder. He turned around to see Deji standing behind him with a smug look on his face. Well, look who's trying to play the hero, Deji said, his voice dripping with sarcasm. You actually think people are gonna vote for you, Connell? You really think anyone cares what you have to say? Connell didn't respond. He didn't want to give Deji the satisfaction of knowing that his words bothered him. Instead, he took a bite of his food, pretending not to notice. You know, Deji continued, sitting down across from Connell, you're just wasting your time. You're gonna lose. And when you do, we're all gonna laugh about it. Connell looked up, meeting Deji's eyes. He didn't want to let Deji get to him, but something about the way Deji spoke, so sure of himself, made Connell feel small. You're not even in the running, Connell, Deji said, sneering. You're a joke, a nerd in a sack. Connell felt his fists clench. He wanted to say something back, to tell Deji that he wasn't a joke, that he was doing this for himself, not to impress anyone. But the words stuck in his throat. Just then, Tony walked by, smirking at Connell. What's up, sack boy? Still think you can win this thing? Everyone knows it's mine already. Connell didn't answer, his jaw tightening. Tony was right. Tony had the votes. He had the popularity. No one was going to vote for Connell. But then, something strange happened. Deji looked over at Tony and said, hey, maybe you should give Connell a chance. He's not as bad as we thought. Connell blinked, surprised. Was Deji actually being nice? Tony didn't seem impressed. What? Are you serious? Connell? No one cares about that guy. He turned to Connell with a cold look. You're gonna lose, sack boy. That's the reality. Connell sat quietly, not sure what to say. Tony's words still stung, but there was something different in Deji's tone. Maybe, just maybe, Connell wasn't completely alone. He kept his eyes down, pushing his food around his plate. He wasn't sure if Deji had really meant it, but something about the way the conversation had shifted made him feel like maybe he had a chance. Not with Tony, not with Deji, but with himself. That afternoon, Connell went to his last class of the day, still feeling the weight of the lunchroom conversation. It had been a strange experience, hearing Deji actually defend him, even for a moment. He knew it wasn't going to change anything with Tony, but it made him feel a little more hopeful. As he entered the classroom, he was surprised to see some of his classmates already talking to each other, exchanging ideas about the election. A few of them nodded at him as he walked by, and he couldn't help but notice that there seemed to be less laughter, less pointing than usual. Connell made his way to his seat, thinking about the election, the speech, and the strange conversation with Deji. Maybe he wasn't as invisible as he thought. Maybe, just maybe, things were starting to change. The next few days after the campaign speech were filled with a strange mix of excitement and dread. Connell didn't know how to feel. On the one hand, he had made it this far. He was officially a candidate in the student council election. But on the other hand, it felt like nothing had really changed. Tony was still making jokes. His friends were still laughing at him. He still wore the sack, still tried to stay invisible. But something about it all felt different now. Connell had put himself out there, spoken up, and maybe, just maybe, people were starting to listen. He still had a long way to go, but for the first time, Connell believed that maybe he had a chance. That was until the news broke. It started with a whisper during lunch. Connell was sitting in his usual spot by the window, staring out at the schoolyard, when he overheard a group of students talking in hushed voices. "Did you hear about the principal?" one of them said. Connell leaned in slightly, trying not to look too obvious, but the curiosity was eating at him. He couldn't help but eavesdrop. "I heard he's been messing with the school's funds. Like a lot of money," another voice replied. "It's all over the place. Some shady deals going on behind the scenes." Connell's heart skipped a beat. What did they mean? The principal, Mr. Adeyemi, had always been strict, but he never seemed like the type to get involved in anything shady. Connell frowned, trying to make sense of what they were saying. "Are you sure?" the first voice asked. "I heard the teachers were involved too. They've been giving grades to students for a price. Some of them are in on it." The conversation continued, but Connell couldn't focus anymore. His mind was racing. He felt a cold shiver run down his spine. This wasn't just some small rumor, it was a scandal. A big one. And if it was true, it could shake the school to its core. Connell spent the rest of the day in a daze. He couldn't concentrate on his classes. The whispers were everywhere now, and it seemed like every student was talking about the scandal. Everyone except Tony. Tony, as always, was sitting at the back of the classroom with his friends, smiling, making jokes. But Connell could tell. He could tell that even Tony was bothered. There was something in his eyes. At the end of the school day, Connell was walking down the hallway when he bumped into Mrs. Okafor, his history teacher. She looked unusually tense, her brow furrowed as she hurried past him. "Good afternoon, Mrs. Okafor," Connell said, trying to sound casual. She glanced at him, but instead of smiling like she usually did, her expression was sharp. She looked around quickly, almost like she was checking if anyone was listening. "Connell, I need to speak with you," she said in a low voice, her tone serious. Connell's heart raced. What was this about? Mrs. Okafor was a kind teacher, but she never acted like this. "Sure, Mrs. Okafor. What's going on?" he asked, trying to keep his voice steady. She looked around once more before leaning in closer. "There's something you need to know. You should be careful. Things are about to get ugly, and you don't want to get caught up in it." Connell's eyes widened. "What do you mean?" Mrs. Okafor sighed, her face showing the weariness of someone who had been holding in a secret for far too long. "The corruption. Everything you've heard. It's true. The principal and some of the teachers have been involved in illegal activities. And now it's all coming out. It's going to cause chaos, and some people are going to do anything to cover it up." Connell was stunned. "But what does that have to do with me?" "Nothing," she said quickly, "but just be careful who you trust. That's all I'm saying." Connell nodded, still in shock, as Mrs. Okafor turned and walked quickly down the hall. His mind was racing. Corruption? A scandal involving the teachers and the principal? It sounded like something out of a movie, but it was happening at his school, and Connell had no idea how deep it went. The next day, things escalated quickly. Connell was walking down the hallway, trying to avoid Tony and his friends, when he saw a group of students gathered around the school bulletin board. A large notice was pinned up, and people were whispering excitedly, pointing at the paper. Connell walked over, curiosity eating at him. He read the notice. It was a statement from the school administration, confirming that an investigation was underway regarding the principal and several teachers. The notice explained that the school was aware of the corruption and that steps were being taken to address it. But there was more. The notice mentioned that a number of students were involved in the scandal as well. Some names had already been dropped, but they hadn't revealed all of them yet. Connell's heart skipped a beat. What did this mean for the student council election? Was he going to be dragged into this mess somehow? Connell tried to find out more, but the students around him were too busy talking about the scandal. Some were laughing, Some were shocked, but all of them had the same look in their eyes: fear. The school had been a place of order and control for so long, and now it felt like everything was falling apart. That afternoon, during lunch, Connell couldn't shake the feeling that something was going to happen. He was sitting in his usual corner, poking at his food, when Deji came up to him, his face serious. "Connell," Deji said, lowering his voice so no one could hear, "I've been hearing things. This scandal, it's bigger than we thought. And people are starting to blame others for what happened." Connell looked up at Deji, confused. "Blame who? The teachers?" Deji shook his head. "No, the students. Some of the teachers bribed students to get better grades, and now they're saying the students were in on it too. People are pointing fingers at everyone." Connell felt his stomach turn. He had to be careful. He couldn't let anyone think he was involved in anything illegal. His campaign, his whole reputation could be ruined in an instant. "I don't know what's going to happen next," Deji said, looking over his shoulder nervously. "But there's talk of the student council being cancelled, and that means you won't get a chance to run. They might stop everything." Connell's heart sank. He had worked so hard to even be in this election, and now everything was falling apart. He wasn't just worried about losing. He was worried about his reputation. He wasn't involved in any of this corruption, but would anyone believe that? Would they see him as just another part of the mess? "I need to talk to someone about this," Connell muttered. Deji nodded, his expression more serious than Connell had ever seen it. "Just be careful, Connell. You don't want to get caught up in this. It's not something you can just walk away from." Connell stood up, still trying to make sense of everything. The election, the scandal, and his future. It all felt like it was spiraling out of control. He didn't know what was going to happen next, but he knew he had to find out more. He couldn't just let the whole school turn against him. He had no choice. He had to figure out how to clear his name, and fast. The rest of the day felt like a blur. Connell's mind was filled with thoughts of the scandal. He could barely focus in class, the whispers and stares distracting him at every turn. He kept his head down, his heart heavy with the weight of everything that had happened. As he made his way out of the building at the end of the day, Connell saw Tony standing by the gates, talking to his friends. He was laughing, his usual cocky grin on his face, but something was different. Connell couldn't put his finger on it, but there was a change in the air. "Hey, sack boy," Tony called out, his voice mocking as always. "You scared? Is the scandal too much for you to handle?" Connell walked past him, refusing to engage. He had enough to worry about without getting dragged into another one of Tony's games. But he couldn't shake the feeling that this was just the beginning. The scandal wasn't over yet, and Connell wasn't sure if he was ready for what was coming next. The days following the revelation of the scandal felt like a blur for Connell. The entire school was in chaos. The whispers were louder, the laughter more mocking, and no one seemed to know what to believe anymore. Students were suddenly more cautious, unsure of who to trust. The administration had promised to handle the situation, but it seemed like the only thing growing faster than the rumors was the tension in the air. Connell did his best to ignore it all. He focused on his studies, keeping his head down. The election seemed like a distant memory now. Who cared about a student council when the entire school was falling apart? But even as things seemed to spiral out of control, Connell couldn't shake the feeling that something wasn't right. He felt like he had to do something. He didn't know what, but he couldn't just stand by and watch everything burn. Then came the day when everything changed. Started like any other day. Connell was walking to his next class, trying to avoid Tony and his friends. He had been keeping to himself a lot more lately, not wanting to deal with the mocking comments or the laughter. But today, as he was walking down the hallway, he heard something that made him stop dead in his tracks. "Don't you dare speak up, Tony," came a voice from the hallway. Connell turned his head, recognizing the voice instantly. It was Mrs. Okafor, the history teacher. She was standing outside the teacher's lounge, talking to Tony, who was smirking at her. Her arms were crossed, and she looked like she was trying to keep her cool. "You don't scare me, Mrs. Okafor," Tony said, his voice dripping with arrogance. "You can't control what's happening here. This school is falling apart and you can't fix it. No one can." Cunnel could see the tension building in Mrs. Okafor's face. Her brow was furrowed, her lips tight. She was clearly trying to keep the situation under control, but Tony wasn't making it easy. "You're right," Mrs. Okafor said, her voice sharp. "This school is falling apart because of people like you. People who think they can get away with anything. But I'm not going to stand by and watch you destroy everything." Cunnel felt a knot in his stomach. He didn't know what was happening, but it didn't seem good. He couldn't hear all the details, but he could tell something serious was going down. He stepped forward slowly, hoping to get a better look. That's when he saw the group of older students coming down the hallway. Cunnel froze. They looked angry, really angry. They were from the same group that Tony hung out with, but these were older students, some of them who had been suspended before. Cunnel had heard rumors about them. They were trouble. Tony saw them too, and his expression shifted. The smirk faded as he realized what was happening. "You have no idea what you're messing with," Tony said to Mrs. Okafor, his voice low and threatening. "You can't stop what's coming. No one can." Cunnel watched as Tony turned and walked away, his gang following him. They moved with purpose, like they had something planned. Cunnel felt his heart pound in his chest. What was going on? What were they planning? He couldn't ignore it any longer. He had to find out. Cunnel watched the group disappear around the corner. Mrs. Okafor was still standing there, looking frustrated but determined. Cunnel felt a strange feeling rise inside him, something he hadn't felt in a long time. It wasn't fear. It was something else. Something that made him want to do something. Without thinking, Cunnel rushed down the hallway after them. He didn't know what he was going to do, but he knew he had to act fast. There was no way he could let Tony and his friends get away with whatever they were planning. Cunnel rounded the corner just in time to see Tony and his group slipping into a back room near the school's storage area. He didn't know what they were doing, but it wasn't good. He had to stop them. Cunnel pushed the door open slowly, trying not to make any noise. The room was dimly lit, but he could see Tony standing at the front, speaking to the older students. His voice was low, but Cunnel could still hear the words. "I'm telling you, it's all going to be fine," Tony was saying. "We have everything in place. We just need a little more time, and no one will be able to touch us." Cunnel didn't know exactly what Tony was talking about, but he could tell it wasn't good. He had to warn someone, but before he could even think of what to do, one of the older students, a big guy with a scar on his cheek, turned and saw Cunnel standing in the doorway. "What are you doing here?" the guy growled, taking a step forward. Cunnel froze. His mind raced, but nothing came out. He didn't know how to talk his way out of this. He just had to think fast. I saw you guys coming in here," Cunnel stammered, his voice shaking. I thought I heard something. I didn't mean to spy on you." The guy with the scar didn't look convinced. "You're lying," he said, his voice low and threatening. "What were you really doing here?" Cunnel's heart pounded in his chest. He was trapped. If he didn't do something, they were going to hurt him. He looked around, his eyes scanning the room, looking for anything he could use to defend himself. That's when he saw it. An old broomstick leaning against the wall. Without thinking, Cunnel grabbed it, swinging it out in front of him. The guy with the scar stopped in his tracks, his eyes widening in surprise. Cunnel took a step back, raising the broomstick in front of him like it was a shield. "Stay away from me," Cunnel said, his voice trembling but firm. For a moment, no one moved. Tony and the others were watching, but no one was saying anything. Cunnel's heart was racing. He had no idea what to do, but he knew he had to stand his ground. Then, something surprising happened. The guy with the scar stepped back, raising his hands in a mock surrender. All right, he said, his voice still cold. "You're lucky today, sack boy. But don't think this means you're off the hook. We'll deal with you later." Cunnel didn't wait to see what they would do next. He turned and ran, the sound of his footsteps echoing through the hallway. He didn't stop until he reached the safety of the classroom. His heart was still racing, and his hands were shaking. He had no idea what was really going on. But he knew one thing for sure. Tony and his group were up to something. And Cunnel had just gotten a glimpse of it. He didn't know if he could stop them, but he couldn't let it go. He had to do something. As the day ended, Connell knew his life had just taken a turn. He wasn't just running for student council anymore. He was in something much bigger, and he had no idea what was coming next. The tension in the school had only gotten worse since Connell's confrontation with Tony and his friends. Everywhere he went, there was an air of unease. The students talked in hushed tones, their eyes flicking nervously around as if they were expecting something bad to happen at any moment. The corruption scandal had shaken everyone, and Connell couldn't help but feel like he was right in the middle of it all. The day of the end-of-year gala arrived, and it seemed like the whole school was waiting for something. The gala was supposed to be a celebration, but with everything going on, it felt more like a ticking time bomb. Connell didn't know what to expect, but he couldn't ignore the uneasy feeling gnawing at him. He had been avoiding Tony as much as possible, but he knew that wouldn't last. The election was getting closer, and he was starting to feel the weight of the responsibility on his shoulders. Was he really ready to lead? Could he handle the pressure? All these questions swirled in his mind as he stood in front of his mirror, trying to prepare for the evening. Connell had never been one to care about appearances, but tonight felt different. It wasn't just about the gala. It wasn't just about the election. Tonight, he was going to reveal himself, truly reveal himself, for the first time in front of everyone. He could no longer hide in the shadows, behind his sack. His father had always told him to be humble, to hide his wealth, to live a life of simplicity. But Connell was beginning to wonder if that was the right path. The invitation to the gala had been clear. Everyone was to attend in formal attire. It was supposed to be a night to honor the students, but Connell had no idea what kind of honor they were talking about. He knew that the election and the scandal would be the main topic of conversation, and he didn't want to face it. But he had no choice. He stepped into the sleek black suit his father had arranged for him. Felt strange. The fabric was smooth, the fit perfect. Connell looked at his reflection. For the first time, he felt like someone else. His usual self, the boy hiding behind the sack, was nowhere to be found. Tonight, he was someone else. Someone people didn't expect. The school hall was full of students dressed in their finest clothes. It was a night of elegance, the lights sparkling above and the sound of music drifting in the background. Connell could see Tony and his friends laughing and joking in the corner. Tony, as always, was at the center of everything. He had on a sharp suit, his usual confident smirk on his face. Connell noticed how everyone gravitated toward him, their eyes shining with admiration. But Connell couldn't focus on Tony. He was too distracted by the strange feeling inside him. He knew that tonight, everything was going to change. He just didn't know how. As Connell walked into the room, heads turned. The whispers started almost immediately. The students looked at him, their eyes wide, surprised. For a second, Connell felt the weight of their stares on him. But then he stood taller, breathing deeply, forcing himself to walk with his head held high. He wasn't hiding anymore. The buzz in the room grew louder, and it wasn't just because Connell was in a suit. It was because of the way he looked. Connell had always been a handsome boy, but tonight, dressed in the expensive suit, with his hair neatly combed and his face finally revealed, he looked different. The students who had once laughed at him now stared, unsure of what to make of him. Connell was no longer the shy, awkward boy in the sack. He was someone else, someone they didn't know how to place. Connell stood in the corner, his back straight, his eyes scanning the room. He saw Amaka from across the hall. She was with Tony, talking and laughing with her friends. But as her eyes met Connell's, she froze. For a moment, there was silence between them, and Connell could feel the tension. Amaka quickly looked away, but Connell saw the way her expression shifted. It wasn't mocking this time. It was something else. Connell had never been interested in what Amaka thought of him, but tonight, it felt different. She had always been one of Tony's biggest supporters. But now, with him standing there, fully dressed and with his face visible, Connell wondered if she saw him in a new light. The music played on, and Connell felt a strange mix of discomfort and pride. He had revealed himself to the world, but now that the moment was here, he wasn't sure how to feel. Should he be proud? Should he be scared? Or was he just a fool for thinking that anything had changed? Kunnel. Hey, Kunnel. Kunnel turned to see Deji walking toward him. Deji had been one of the few students who had spoken to him with any kindness. Kunnel hadn't really thought much of it at first, but now, as he looked at Deji, he realized how much their interactions had changed. Deji wasn't like Tony, trying to tear him down. He was just different. Wow, Deji said, his eyes wide as he took in Kunnel's appearance. You look amazing, man. Kunnel smiled awkwardly. Thanks, he muttered, not sure what to say. No, really, Deji continued. I didn't expect you to pull this off. I mean, I always knew you were smart, but you're kind of a whole new person now, huh? Kunnel couldn't help but laugh nervously. I guess so. I'm not the only one who noticed, Deji said, looking around. People are talking. Everyone's surprised. But in a good way. They didn't know what to expect from you. Kunnel nodded, feeling a little better. But then, as he looked around, he saw Tony again. This time, Tony was watching him, his face a mix of confusion and something else. Something Kunnel couldn't quite place. Tony wasn't laughing. He wasn't mocking. He was just staring. Kunnel could feel Tony's gaze on him, and for a moment, he wondered if Tony was actually thinking about what he'd said before. Had Kunnel actually done something right? Or was it all just another mistake? Kunnel! A voice shouted. Kunnel turned to see Mrs. Okafor approaching, her smile warm as always. You look fantastic. I knew you had it in you, she said with a laugh. Thanks, Mrs. Okafor, Kunnel said, still feeling a little self-conscious. You've come a long way, she added, her eyes sparkling. Don't let anyone tell you otherwise. You've got this. Kunnel smiled, but the feeling didn't last long. He could still feel Tony's eyes on him. He could feel the weight of everything. His past, the election, the scandal, pressing down on him. At that moment, Mrs. Okafor stepped aside to make room for the headmaster, who was about to make an announcement. Kunnel stood silently, waiting for what was coming next. It was the moment of truth. He had revealed himself, but now the real test was yet to come. Students, friends, faculty, the headmaster said, his voice booming across the room. Tonight is a celebration of all the hard work, dedication, and spirit that each one of you has shown throughout the year. As we prepare for our final event, we will announce the student council president for the upcoming year. The ballots have been counted, and we are ready to reveal the results. Kunnel's stomach tightened. He wasn't ready for this. He had thought he was, but now, standing there with everyone watching him, he wasn't so sure. What if he didn't win? What if he failed? Now, the headmaster continued, let's announce the winner. The room went silent. Kunnel could feel his heartbeat in his throat. He stood there, trying to breathe, trying to stay calm, but all he could hear was the sound of his own pulse. The headmaster smiled. The next student council president is Kunnel Adiwale. The room exploded into noise. Some students cheered, others looked shocked. Kunnel felt like his feet were frozen to the floor. He didn't know what to feel. The applause was louder than he had ever imagined, but all he could hear was the sound of his own breath. He had won. He was going to be the next president of the student council. As Kunnel made his way to the stage, the applause grew louder. He stood there, frozen for a moment, before raising his hand in acknowledgement. It wasn't just the title. It wasn't just the win. It was the realization that, for the first time, Kunnel wasn't the outsider anymore. He had made it. The applause in the auditorium felt like it would never end. Kunnel stood there, his hands shaking as he held the microphone, unsure of what to say. His mind was racing, but he couldn't find the words. How could he speak to these people? The same people who had once mocked him, laughed at him, treated him like he was invisible? But here he was, the new student council president. The whole school was watching him. They had chosen him. He had won not just because of his intelligence, but because something had changed. He had changed. The crowd began to quiet down, and Kunnel finally found his voice. Thank you, he started, his voice a little shaky. I didn't expect this. I didn't think I would even make it this far. But here I am, and I owe it all to you." He took a deep breath, looking out at the students, feeling the weight of the moment. "I wasn't always the guy you'd expect to win an election. I wasn't the most popular. I wasn't the one everyone noticed. But I believed in what I was saying. I believe we can all be better. We can do better. We can make this school a place where everyone is respected, no matter who they are, what they look like, or where they come from. We can make this school a community." Connell paused for a moment, letting his words sink in. He looked at the faces in the crowd. Some of them were nodding, others were still in shock, and a few of them, like Tony, were staring at him like they couldn't believe it. "I promise to work as hard as I can for all of you," Connell continued. "I won't let anyone be left out. I won't let anyone feel like they don't belong, because we all do. And together, we can make this place better than it's ever been." He finished, his heart still pounding in his chest. The crowd erupted into applause again, this time louder and more genuine than before. Connell smiled, but it was a smile filled with disbelief. He had done it. He had won. He was finally a part of something bigger than just surviving high school. He was part of making it better. The night after the gala felt like a dream. Connell couldn't quite believe everything that had happened. He had been so used to hiding, to keeping his head down, to trying not to stand out. And now, here he was, the leader of the school. The thought still felt surreal. As he walked through the school corridors the next day, everything seemed different. He could feel the change in the air, the way people looked at him. He had always been the outsider, the boy in the sack. But now, he was someone they looked to for guidance. People were nodding at him as he walked by, some even saying hello, and Connell couldn't help but smile. It wasn't just that he had won the election. It was that he had finally stepped into his own. For the first time in a long time, Connell didn't feel like he was hiding anymore. And he wasn't just hiding his face. He had been hiding from himself. Connell made his way to the student council office, where his first meeting as president was about to begin. He had a lot of ideas. He had a lot of plans. And he was determined to make sure those plans didn't stay just ideas. He was going to make sure they happened. When he walked in, he saw the other members of the student council already sitting at the table, talking quietly amongst themselves. They looked up as he entered, and there was a brief moment of silence before they all stood up and applauded. Connell felt a rush of pride. This was his team now. These were his people. "Connell, congratulations, man," Deji said with a wide grin, shaking his hand. "I can't believe you actually did it. You really surprised everyone." Connell smiled, still feeling a little overwhelmed by all the attention. "Thanks, Deji. But we have a lot of work to do. We can't just stop here. We have to make sure this school really changes. We can't go back to the way things were." The other council members nodded, and the room fell into a serious silence as they sat down to start the meeting. Connell took a deep breath and began. "I've been thinking about what we can do," he started, "and I want us to focus on the things that matter most. First, we need to make sure everyone feels included. We need to have more activities, more events that bring everyone together, no matter what group they belong to. It's not just about making the school look good. It's about making the people in it feel good." The council members nodded again, and Connell could tell that they were starting to see things the way he did. This wasn't just about popularity. It was about real change. "We also need to address the issues with bullying," Connell continued. "I know a lot of people feel left out, feel like they don't fit in. I've been there and I know how it feels. We need to have workshops, discussions. Anything that can help people understand each other better." One of the council members, a girl named Tulu, raised her hand. "That's a great idea, Connell. But don't you think we should also talk about the problems with the administration? With the corruption and all the stuff that happened?" Connell's heart skipped a beat. He had been hoping that the issue of corruption wouldn't come up, but now that it had, he knew he couldn't avoid it. "I know it's a tough topic, but we can't just ignore it," he said, his voice steady. "We need to make sure this school is a place where everyone can feel safe and respected. And that includes fixing the system that failed so many people. We can't let it happen again." There was a brief silence as everyone absorbed his words. Then Deji spoke up again. "I'm with you, Connell. We all are. We need to make sure things change. We'll support you all the way. Cunnel smiled, feeling the weight of the moment. This was it. This was his chance to make a real difference. And for the first time, he didn't feel like he was doing it alone. After the meeting, Cunnel walked through the school halls again. But this time, it felt different. He wasn't just passing through. He was a part of it now. He was no longer the boy in the sack, hiding from the world. He was Cunnel Adewale, the student council president, and he was ready to make the changes he had always believed in. As he made his way toward his next class, Cunnel spotted Tony. Tony was standing with his usual group of friends, laughing about something. But when Tony saw Cunnel, the laughter died down. Tony's eyes met Cunnel's, and for the first time, Cunnel saw something different in them. It wasn't mocking. It wasn't anger. It was respect. Tony stepped forward, hesitating for a moment before speaking. "You really did it, didn't you?" Cunnel raised an eyebrow, unsure of where this was going. "I did. I didn't think you had it in you," Tony said, his voice quieter now. "But you proved me wrong. Congratulations." Cunnel looked at Tony, surprised. He had expected more ridicule, more teasing. But instead, Tony had offered respect. It wasn't much, but it was something. Cunnel didn't know if this meant Tony was changing, but it was a start. "Thanks, Tony," Cunnel said, giving him a small smile. "We all have a chance to make this place better." And with that, Cunnel walked past Tony, his head held a little higher than before. He wasn't just a kid in a sack anymore. He wasn't just the smart, quiet boy in the corner. He was Cunnel Adewale, the new leader, and he was ready to help lead his school into a new beginning.